So, good afternoon. I'm here with Alan Frost from Simplify Property. Alan, who I've met at my property meets in Wandsworth. Alan's already presented for me at Central London, and Alan's got quite an interesting background in sports journalism. Rather than me go into too much detail about Alan and take away the thunder, huge thanks for you taking some time out this afternoon, Alan, and just really just to answer a few key questions about your property structure. And the first key question is about your story. So for the audience, I've explained that you've come from you've got an economics degree, if I'm right.
Yeah.
You've moved into sports journalism. You worked for Mori for a period of time.
Yeah, in market research.
Yeah, and I heard your interview with Mike Stenhouse about your reaction to working with Mori over a period of time, which has encouraged you to move into being a full-time investor, which has really made a difference. So what have I missed off there? I haven't really said you're into flipping. That's your main strategy, but what else should I say in the introduction for you?
Well, I think you've covered the basics, really. Yeah, I left university with an economics degree, and thought the best use of that was to go into fiction writing, and that ultimately led me into sports writing for Channel 5, BT Sports, the Football Players Union, the PFA. Then circumstances in life meant that I had to also get a job at Ipsos Mori, and then from there really sort of dawned on me that what I wanted to do, and sort of going back to the economics degree, was to run my own business. And I explored franchises, and looked at maybe having some property adventures on the side. And the more I looked at property, and the more I looked at the businesses I was looking for in terms of franchises, the more I realised that property was what I wanted to get into, and jumped in with both feet. Maybe looking back, could have made that transition a little bit smoother. But on the other hand, if I hadn't have done it, maybe I would never have made that step, and it could have been approaching my 60s and thinking, so yeah. I think that pretty much covers everything.
Okay. You mentioned that you could have gone a little bit smoother. In what way? Moved into becoming a full-time investor earlier?
Really, I decided I wanted to get into property. I hadn't really done too much training. I was starting to do begin my education process, but I really wasn't enjoying working at Ipsos Mori, and I didn't want to get stuck in the kind of job that was pretty easy to do. It wasn't taxing necessarily, but it was quite draining. And you'd come home and not really want to do much. So I was like, well, if I want to make this step, let's go for it all barrels. And then I started building up my sort of education and knowledge of property. Whereas really looking back, I could have kept on the Ipsos Mori work. I could have started maybe cutting down my hours, working from home a bit more, because the commute was a couple of hours each way. If I could have made that transition perhaps a little bit gradual, and eventually got to a point when I built up enough knowledge, and I was pretty happy with sort of my base to sort of start from, and then I could have gone, right, now's the time. I mean, difference might have been sort of 6 months or so. So in the grand scheme of things, it's not something I'm fretting about or anything.
Sure. But from what I've heard, you were quite fortunate from the estate agent you were working with. When I think you said you saw on one day 5 properties. It may not have the numbers exactly right, but you saw quite a different number of range of properties from, I think you said a 1 bedroom up to possibly, was it 5 bedroom or something, or certainly larger than you know a 1 bedroom, obviously. So
Yeah.
you know, how much has having that team made a difference?
Well, when I sort of started off, I was looking at anything and everything because I had all these strategies in my head. You know, I realised that a potential opportunity could come anywhere. Um, but in the end, that while it helped build up the relationship with the agent, and helped me eventually narrow down exactly the kind of projects or maybe the kind of vendors I was looking for. It did mean quite a lot of time wasted looking at what the agent would call a great rental, but in terms of yield and sort of potential to add value was was pretty basic and pretty low. Um, it meant quite a bit of time wasted there. Again, that could have been something that I could have sort of phased in a little bit more, sort of worked a bit better on my sort of strategy and had a bit more clarity in what I was looking for specifically. But I'm the kind of person that I learn by doing. So for me, it was better to get sort of stuck in and work out exactly what I need to do and what I'm looking for as I go along. The agent that I picked happened to be the nearest one, and I thought, well, I'm not specifically looking to buy in this area, sort of around where I was living. It was sort of a mile or two away. So if sort of make a fool of myself or say something stupid, I'm not going to really lose anything because this isn't the kind of area I'm really looking to operate in. Again, that was sort of a belief I had initially, and found out that's not necessarily the case. There's plenty of opportunity wherever, and this agent tacked on this little 2-bed maisonette that was rented out and was in a bit of a state, and had a look at it. I put in an offer which was about 10% below what it was on the market for. I didn't think I'd have a cat in hell's chance of getting it, and I did. And then I suddenly worried that maybe I'd paid too much, and maybe my numbers were wrong, and a bit of buyer's remorse. But we bought it, did the work, and made a tidy sum on it. So in the end, it all worked out good.
Sure. In terms of over your journey of being an investor, have you invested in any software? What's been the most important or useful software for you on your journey?
I'd say the most useful has been the CRM system that I use, which is Less Annoying CRM. It's an online, basically database. Initially, when I went to networking events and I was getting business cards, I think I put 6 in an Excel spreadsheet, and I had a stack of about 200. And I was like, well, this isn't exactly going to plan. And anyone who's trying to use a spreadsheet for that sort of manner, for that process, you gotta use something better designed, because Excel is great for calculating formulas and sort of using numerical data. It's a little less creative and flexible as a database or a CRM system. So yeah, I use Less Annoying CRM. It costs $10 a month. So depending on what the exchange rate is, I think like
Sure.
£7, £8. And yeah, that enables me to work a lot more effectively. It keeps a list of all my points of contact with different people I meet, and it just generally allows me to give a better air of professionalism when I can sort of recall detail and conversations and emails very quickly when really I'm just sat in front of a computer screen just bringing up the link that the CRM system saved.
You really do find it that useful, that CRM system. Was it easy to use, or because I've used lots of different softwares and some of them are easier to use than others? So Less Annoying, I did see the reference about Less Annoying CRM, but I wasn't sure if that was really the name of the CRM system. But
Yeah, it is the name, and it is it's very easy to use. I'm not by no means the most proficient computer user. Like want to tailor it a little bit, and you can create new sort of fields and subfields, search by keywords, and you can group people. There's plenty that you can do with it. It's not, if you're a massive multi-million pound property education provider or marketing company, yeah, you probably find it just a touch too simplistic for your needs. But for anyone who's starting off, it's ideal, really. It doesn't cost a lot. It does exactly what you need it to do. And if anyone wants a 60-day trial of it, send me an email. I'll send you a link, and you can test it and check it out for your heart's content.
Okay. That's a good point. How do people get hold of you who are thinking, let's do that 60-day trial? How would they get hold of you, Alan?
They can drop me an email, Alan, that's ALAN, at simplify-property.co.uk. If you search for Simplify Property on Google, will be the website that pops up there, and you can contact me through the website. And anything, you can always give me a call or text on my mobile, 07711 583 346. I'm not immediately available, because we are in meetings and doing business, I guess. I always try and give people a call back as soon as I can, and I'm always happy to talk property with people, because I remember when I was starting out and trying to see how I'd make that first step, and I think that first step is really the biggest and the hardest one to make, and any help you can get to get going, I think it provides great value.
Sure. So the other questions are looking at where you see yourself in a few years' time, but in terms of your progression, it's been quite fast as well in the last few years. I think initially the first 6 months were the slowest part, and then after that it is sped up. So one of the key questions is, where do you see yourself in the next few years?
It's a very good question, and it's something that I think we're getting up to Christmas, and it'll be time to reevaluate exactly. I always thought, I enjoyed flipping property, and I thought, naturally I'd just get into bigger deals. We would go from just doing single units to converting into several units, going into multi-million pound developments, and maybe adding commercial aspects. But on a recent project, we sort of examined, whether to, after using bridging to buy the property, to whether to then convert it into a buy-to-let. And that might be something that I'll examine a little bit more, because I'm wary that while flipping's great and development's great, you also want that sort of long-term, quote-unquote, passive income to come in. And I know that looking back in 5 years' time, the biggest mistakes I'll have made would be not being able to retain the properties that I've had to sell, that I've flipped. So in 5 years' time, I think I'll be looking to do property developments of sort of between £2 and £5 million, and hopefully have a portfolio sort of between 6 and 10 properties. Ideally, sort of in the South London, Surrey area. I'm not myself looking to invest, further afield. However, I'm starting to explore with an eye on the future, sort of, becoming I look for investors for my flips, and maybe I can become an investor for people who are doing sort of HMOs up north, which are sort of bringing in good cash flow, and then I'll have the best of both worlds, really.
Sure. One of your skills is about sourcing.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you source? What marketing method do you think is most useful for you over the last few years in terms of sourcing?
Well, I find a lot of my personal deals through my local estate agency connections. They're quite simple things, really. You don't necessarily see too much BMV, but there can be opportunity to make good money on flips, and you can sort of follow that line. However, I'm finding now, sort of in the last 3 to 6 months, really it's my network, it's connections I've made both sort of in property circles and in sort of general business networking. As I've got better identifying potential areas for opportunity, contacts who will deal with vendors who, there might be opportunities for BMV or sort of assisted sale or lease option opportunities. I'm finding a lot more sort of better returning opportunities from that. Is not necessarily involving sort of buying a property. If it's an assisted sale, we'll just go in and do the work, and then we'll share the profit afterwards. So while numerically the profit might not be as high, I'm putting down a hell of a lot less money, and it's a much more simpler process in terms of there's only one set of legals really to do. We can identify a vendor a lot easier, and the likelihood of transactions a lot higher than sort of on the open market. So really, I'm sort of pushing my network a lot more. I've done a lot of networking over the last couple of years and built up a good sort of database of contacts. I think there's lots more opportunity to come from there. So I've tried leafleting and newspaper adverts with mixed results. Really, not just myself. I'm not quite congruent with sort of doing the guerrilla marketing, the yellow letters and that. It doesn't come naturally to me, and therefore I don't think I can do it as effectively as others. But on the other side, through networking, that seems to be working well for me. And I think sort of in the end, you can try all bits and pieces, and you just got to find whichever path's got the least resistance, really, and then follow that.
So I'd love to hear more from you, and we will definitely on October the 13th. Before we come to the end of this interview, but for people who are fresh to property network and the property industry and looking at property as a investment, where do you think they should start in terms of strategy? Rent to rent, buy to rent, buy to sell? Where would you say?
I think that's a really difficult question, because it really does come down to an individual's circumstances. If they've got the time but not the money, then sort of rent to rent or sourcing could be something that will provide sort of the best results for them. If they haven't got the time but they've got the money, just doing simple buy to let and building up a portfolio over time, and it all depends on what their goals are as well. What I would say is, since I started the buy to sell, the flip strategy has come under quite a bit of pressure with additional stamp duty of 3%. Affordability's been stretched, so we're still seeing vendors looking for top prices, whereas buyers are being a lot more sort of circumspect on what they're looking to pay. We've changed our strategy a little bit in terms of the properties that we're looking at. We're looking for properties that will be reselling to sort of primarily first-time buyers. And so we're looking at flats and small houses rather than bigger family homes, where we're just finding the market's a little bit slower, people are a little bit more pernickety, and at the end of the day, it's not necessarily all about the end number, the end profit you make. It's great making a great profit, but if it's taking you 2 years of marketing, well, you've missed a lot of opportunity, and there's a massive opportunity cost there. So we've sort of scaled down our sort of top level that we'd be willing to pay for property ourselves. It's a bit different if we're looking for stuff that we're going to JV with people on, but sort of our bread and butter, so to speak, we're looking at sort of flats and houses, stuff that can be flipped over quite quickly, and that there's a big wedge of market that's still looking for it and can still afford it. So if people are looking at flipping, you maybe got to examine the kind of end user you're looking to sell to carefully, because some of the market's just quietened down a bit.
And so, Alan, I could easily go on with this quite easily, which we will do definitely in more depth on the Thursday the 13th of October. If you're on Meetup, it's Central London, meetup.com/Central London Property Network. Details about that particular event. Just want to say a huge thanks for you taking time out this afternoon, and I'll see you on the 13th of October.
Yeah, looking forward to it, Brendan. Thank you very, very much for having me, and yeah, can't wait for Thursday the 13th.
What do you think that the key takeaway for the 13th will be? What will you be sharing on that date?
I think we'll be talking about the changes to flipping that have sort of highlighted on the previous question, and really sort of exit strategies, because you might go in with a plan A of flipping the property, but with a slightly more turbulent market. You want to consider the plan B and plan C carefully, and I think we'll cover those options and sort of talk a hint about how to turn sort of a flipping strategy into a long-term sort of wealth growth strategy.
Sure. I just want to say a huge thanks once again, Alan Frost from Simplify Property. Thank you.
Thank you.